and welcome to Your Coaching Journey, a podcast for doctors about coaching. Whether you're a coaching doctor, a doctor who is learning to coach, or a doctor who'd like to build coaching into your professional life, then this is the podcast for you. Hello, I'm Tom Dillon, and with me today is my co-host and business partner, Helen Leathers. Good morning, Helen. How are you?
I'm wonderfully well. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much.
Good, good. What are we talking about today?
Today, I thought we'd return to the subject of neurodiversity and the concept within the field of the neuromajority.
Okay.
Or of someone being neurotypical.
Okay, so just to remind our listeners that neurodiversity reminds us that people think, process and communicate experience in the world in different ways. Neurodiversity is all of us. Yes,
and I think that that's an important point that we always try to reiterate, that neurodiversity just describes the differences between a population. So any group, we're all going to have our own unique neurological makeup. So that is neurodiversity.
Like ecodiversity.
Yes. And then we have neurodivergence as a phrase. I guess it's a word, isn't it, rather than a phrase? As a term that has come to be seen as a form of neurological difference. So it can be diagnosed and categorized as different from the neuromajority, or what's sometimes referred to as the neurotypical. So I guess autism is a neurodivergence, as is ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia. I've learned how to say dyscalculia. It's actually
Have you learned?
I've learned to say it. I
well
can't
done.
say it, but I've learned to say it. Dyscalculia.
Dyscalculia.
I was listening to a podcast with someone that has it. She was teaching the podcast host how to say it. Dyscalculia. Dysgraphia, Tourette's. So those are the common neurodivergences that get referred to. So when someone says they're neurodivergent, they're identifying as having one of those recognized neurodivergences. And they might not have been officially diagnosed as having one, but they identify as having one of those. So someone might say they have ADHD without a formal ADHD diagnosis. Mm-hmm. But they will probably just say, I am neurodivergent.
Yeah. And we've spoken about that on a previous episode.
Before.
Yeah.
Yeah. We recognise why someone might use the term. Yeah. And I think it was always intended as a very inclusive term.
Yes. Yes.
So
talk stats.
Yes. So those conditions that I've just listed account for up to 31% of the population. And we'll break those figures down a bit in a moment. But obviously, anyone outside of that potential 31% is seen as neurotypical because they don't have one of those neurodivergences.
Okay.
Yes. So it might be a really quick episode, but I just wanted to explore the idea of being neurotypical or being part of the neuromajority, because I'm not sure whether either concept really exists in the way that it's talked about, or it can be defined other than not having one of those neurodivergences. But I don't think that's a very accurate description of those people.
No.
So the National Autistic Society suggests that a person who is neurodivergent has a brain that diverges from the typical brain. So someone who is not neurodivergent is often referred to as neurotypical. So that's the National Autistic Society's definition of neurotypical.
Still not that helpful, is it?
No. I mean, they go on to say that because of the diversity of all human brains, there is debate about whether a typical brain really exists. And neurodivergent people are defined by having experiences and reactions that differ from what is generally considered typical. And they're grouped because of the similarities they have to each other. So they would say, for example, autistic people share specific differences from non-autistic people. These specific differences are what we call autism. But even though autistic people share differences from non-autistic people, they can still be very different from each other. Mm. Yeah, and it's like being feminine or masculine. There are, within each group, there is difference, isn't there?
All a spectrum.
Yeah. And this is why when we talk about neurodivergence in coaching, it's important to have that very person-centered, how do you experience the world?
Yes.
And be curious about that individual rather than go, oh, yeah.
Because we can't make assumptions, because everyone's so different.
Oh, yeah, they've got ADHD. They'll be like this. You can't do that. You have to think about what's going on for them. So roughly 1 to 1.5% of the population is autistic in the UK, according to the National Autism Society. That's their figure.
Okay.
And the original idea of having the term neurodivergence was to say, hey, look, you're seeing autistic people as somehow less than neurotypical people. And now this is back in 2001. So the lady that coined the phrase. So that was anyone that wasn't autistic. So the phrase came about. So a lady called Cassian Asasamasu, and she used it to describe individuals whose neurological makeup, again, diverged from the neuromajority. That was kind of her idea. So she's since written that she coined it because people were using neurodiverse and neurodiversity to just mean autistic. So before she coined that phrase, that's how it was used. But she was saying that there's more ways that people can have a different but still a perfect brain. So neurodivergent refers to neurologically divergent from typical, that's all. So that's what she's saying. So and she made the point at the time that it doesn't just mean autistic people, it means ADHD people, people with learning disabilities, epileptic people, people with mental illnesses, people with MS, Parkinson's, cerebral palsy, dyspraxia, and a phrase she used of wonky lateralization or something. That was kind of
okay.
She's quite radical in the way she spoke, but that was kind of, people being different.
And there would also be in amongst that acquired brain injuries.
Yeah. So that was what she said. I'm kind of paraphrasing her words, but she was saying that all it means is it's not another tool for exclusion. It's specifically a tool of inclusion. So if you don't want to be associated with those people, then you are the one who needs another word. Neurodivergent is for all of us. Okay. So it was she was angry, I think. So that's where it came from. So, but she made the point that it's not just about those conditions that get referred to. So there's those 7 conditions that we talked about that make up possibly 31%. But I think that message just got lost a little bit. And now it almost gets boiled down to ADHD and autism. Yeah. And which is only around 4% of the population. So I guess my thinking around this, and I went down a bit of a tunnel with it, but I was thinking about how many people might not be neurotypical. So that's kind of what I want to explore around the stats, really.
So how many make up the neuromajority?
Yeah, I'm not sure that it is a neuromajority, but it's getting closer to not. Yeah. Well, we'll explore it and we can decide at the end how we think about this. But the numbers are quite big in the end. So obviously autistic people are not considered neurotypical. So that's 1% of the population. An individual with ADHD is not neurotypical, and that's around 3.5% of the population. The latest estimates in the States, they talk about 10% of the population having ADHD. But obviously there's some intersectionality. So there's such a term now as ADHD. So people that are autistic having ADHD traits and people that have ADHD having autistic traits. So there is that intersectionality. So let's say it's 4%. Let's give it that number. Then we have dyslexia, around 6%, and dyscalculia at around 4%. And then about 6% of the population have both. So there's, again, that intersectionality between those two. So that's another 16%. Dysgraphia's condition affects someone's ability to write, and it's estimated around 5% of the population has dysgraphia. And those with dyspraxia sit around 6% of the population. So then we're up to potentially 31%. And the number of people with Tourette's is estimated around 1% of the population. But again, they might have co-occurring conditions such as ADHD. So we're just going to count them in with 31%. So let's say 31% for those 7 conditions. So those are the people that we would see that might be seen as not neurotypical. Now, if we take that view that being neurotypical is experience the world and operating in the way that most people do, then we have to rule out some other people. So approximately 2% of the population are living with the effects of a stroke. And if you're living with the effects of a stroke, then you're not neurotypical. There's been a change, hasn't there? Yeah. So that's 2%. Roughly 1% of the population are living with the effects of traumatic brain injury, other than strokes, because obviously stroke can produce that. So they're not neurotypical. Around 1.5% of the population living with dementia. So again, they're no longer neurotypical. Estimated 1.5% of the population living with bipolar disorder. 4% of the population living with PTSD. 10% of the population have an anxiety disorder. 3.5% of the population have severe depression. 0.5% of the population are registered blind, and you might not think of that as a neurodivergence, but you're not experiencing the world in the way that other people are experiencing the world if you are blind.
Yeah, and you've got major cranial nerves, brain nerves that go to and from the eyes.
And 1.5% of the population are profoundly deaf. And again, you're not experiencing the world in the same way. So if we add all of those together, we have around 55% of the population that you could say are not neurotypical.
And there's, I assume you might have included this in the other than stroke, but you've got people with brain tumours, you've got people who can't speak properly. So they would also be...
Yeah, I've missed a few things out.
Yeah, I'm just in the talking it through, I just thought about how my dad had a brain tumour, and he was then, once they operated, he couldn't speak, and he had dysgraphia, and that was an acquired dysgraphia because of the surgery. Yeah. So...
Yeah, and obviously that figure of 55%, whilst I might have missed some things out, I don't know what the number of people that after effects have brain tumour. I don't know what those numbers are. But clearly that 55% can't be right, because there are going to be some co-occurring conditions within those numbers. I don't know how you would end up with the right number, but it's still going to be a very big number, isn't it? And I think why I was so interested in exploring it a little bit is that I do think that we get the idea that, as I say, it's almost been condensed down to ADHD and autism are this 4% of the population that are neurodivergent and everyone else is neurotypical, when actually we can see, maybe more than half the population are not neurotypical.
Yes. So it's almost like you have different averages, don't you? But you'd have neurotypical compared with ADHD, neurotypical compared with autism.
Yes.
But actually overall, if you just think about neurodiversity, there's no neuromajority.
There might be.
Okay.
So because we can't know what the numbers are.
No. And
I'm quite happy for someone to get in touch and say, what you're talking about is probably 40%, because there is so comorbidity of those conditions. But I've kind of done my best to rule that out in the way that I've done it, but I can't rule it out completely. So, but up to 55% of the UK population have something going on for them that would make them not neurotypical.
Yeah.
Which is a huge number.
It's huge,
so, neurodiversity obviously is a thing for everyone. And I think quite often when people say I'm neurodivergent, some people will say, yeah, everyone is. And that's clearly not the case. But I think there's a huge part of the population that have neurological stuff going on for them that makes them not neurotypical. And obviously as coaches, again, we need to take a very person-centered approach to what's going on. So someone might not think of themselves as being neurodivergent because they might think that's just autistic people and people with ADHD, and I don't have either of those things, so I'm not neurodivergent, but they're not neurotypical either.
Yes.
So someone with bipolar disorder might come into the coaching room.
Yeah.
And we're going to work with that.
We had the conversation the other day that I have synesthesia, which, whilst it's not a diagnosable neurodivergence, I see sound. So whenever I listen to music, it makes pictures in my head, which some people find highly amusing. But it makes my head really busy. It makes it really hard for me to think when there's noise going on, because it's not just music, it's all sound makes pictures in my head. So I don't have any diagnosis of anything, but that is something that affects me.
Yeah. And obviously within any of these conditions, there is a spectrum, isn't there? There's a huge difference between individuals within each of those groups. So someone with anxiety, I mean, I kind of looked at severe anxiety rather than just anxiety, but there will be other people that their anxiety is not as debilitating as it is for someone else. Same with autism. Some people are really impacted in the way they live their life by their autism. Other people seem to manage very well within society and going about normal everyday activities, living with autism. I think what I'm saying is that when we include neurodevelopmental differences, acquired neurological conditions, mental health conditions, epilepsy, sensory differences, it becomes difficult to sustain that idea that there's a single, clearly defined neuromajority.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
So if for people who are coaching, you've mentioned having that very person-centered approach. If someone comes to you as a coach and says, I'm neurodivergent, we need to know a little bit more. We need to explore that with them. What does it mean for them?
I think, as I said earlier, when people say, I'm neurodivergent, and people say, well, everyone is, that's clearly wrong. And what they mean is, there is neurodiversity. But I think, having this conversation, we've demonstrated that the number of people that are not neurotypical is far greater than the conversation normally allows for.
Yeah.
And that actually, if we're coaching, half the people that are coming into the room, or maybe more than half, because those people may well come to coaching more frequently than other people. But an awful lot of people are going to have some neuro differences.
So something else for people to ponder on in this arena.
It's a provocation.
Yeah.
See what people think. Feel free to email me. Somebody emailed me the other day about a podcast on ADHD to say it's got them thinking. They were going to re-listen and make some notes. So I'm happy for that. I want to kind of have a conversation about this stuff, and because I think it's very easy for it to become there becomes a narrative that everyone just accepts. And I think to explore it and to kind of try to deconstruct what's being said a little bit, whilst being respectful of everyone's views on it, I think is helpful.
Yeah. And I think as coaches, our role is to get people thinking and rather than just accepting, using language perhaps that isn't fully understood, let's think some more about this.
So if you feel a little bit agitated by our conversation, reflect on why that might be, and feel free to contact me and let me know what you think. I'm interested. I want to have the conversation. So
open to learning as well.
I'm open to learning. I certainly don't have it all figured out, but I am learning, and having the conversations helps me to learn. So
excellent. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. What are we doing next time?
Next time, we're doing something a bit different again. We're going to share with our listeners a conversation I had with Rachel Morris from You're Not For.
Okay.
So we're going to be sharing the podcast episode that I recorded with her on this channel.
She's getting a good airing. We did one with me.
Yes, a few weeks ago.
A little while ago. So
yes.
Good.
So
always a good conversation with Rachel.
Yeah, absolutely. So it just leaves us to say, do share this podcast with your friends and colleagues if you think they would be interested in it, and give us a 5-star rating. Would be lovely.
Yeah, whatever your platform of choice is.
Yes.
Do recommend our podcast. And we'll see you next time.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.